Hey guys, sorry, I didn't know I was going live yet. I accidentally hit start. So here we are. If you don't know me, my name is Christy Lawrence with Time to Profit. I own a business that helps other businesses get more comfortable with sales. So if you are struggling with sales, if the thought of sales stresses you out, you are absolutely in the right place. So, one of the ways that I help people get more comfortable around sales is by making the process simple, effective, and rewarding for both you and your prospects. Now, one of the ways that I do that is by helping business owners generate leads offline, which gives you the ability to handpick your customers, giving you tools to start engaging conversations with your prospects. And then also, how do you ask the right questions during the proposal process to get your clients engaged? And then most importantly, actually asking people to work with you, which can be kind of scary and intimidating, but it really, really doesn't have to be, and it doesn't have to be salesy either. So today, speaking of that, at some point during a sales conversation, the prospect is probably going to be curious about money, right? How much does this cost? What are you going to charge me? And, my guess is a lot of my clients kind of get really uncomfortable and sticky when the conversation starts to focus on money. So how many of you, share in the comments below, feel comfortable talking about money? How many of you are like, yeah, that's my favorite part? Right? Not most of us, but it's a really important part because if we don't talk about money, it's really hard to find agreement and to get paid. And even when you're in service, whether you're a nonprofit or not, getting paid is part of the deal of having a business. And so what I want to do is help you get more comfortable with that process around talking about money. So, right, I want you to think about your own process, right? If you have a set price for your product, if you have it posted on your website, if it's something that varies depending on the client, right? Like if you're in insurance, it's going to vary depending on what type of policy you're going to write for that homeowner. It's not just set and done, right? But you're still going to have these conversations. And a lot of times we get into a flow, we get into a rhythm, we're having a great conversation with somebody, and we can see that they would be a great fit, that we can offer a great service for them, that they're going to get a ton of value, and we're really excited about working with them. And then it's like, okay, now we got to talk about money, and our heart rate goes up and our palms get sweaty and we start to second guess ourselves, right? We start to kind of like get a little bit worried. And there are a lot of elements to this. We're not going to talk about all of them today because I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to just give you some tools that you can start practicing this week. But a lot of this has to do with how confident you feel about your pricing. And we're going to talk more down the road about pricing and how that becomes a part of the sales process. We're also going to talk about how your mindset around money and the way you think about money is actually going to have a really big impact on how confident you feel talking about pricing. It's really important to remember that you are not your prospect. And so your prospect may have a completely different perspective about money than what you do. So it's really easy to get tripped up in here. It's really easy to have this feel awkward. So if that's you, what I want you to know is that that's perfectly normal. It's okay. And there's some ways to make it easier. So this is just where you're at right now. And I'm going to give you some tools that hopefully make this a little bit easier down the road. So what I want to talk about first is you have to eliminate any perception about what you think your clients think about money. So hopefully you've done some work around your ideal customer avatar, and right, some of this is going to come up on that. But once you have a price that you feel confident with, that is grounded in business reality, that you know is the right price for your business and your clients, you have to stop worrying about what your clients think about your pricing. And I know that sounds so counterintuitive, right? Like, of course we're going to worry, but the reality is we don't know. And I'm going to give you an example, right? For me, a $30 entree for dinner feels reasonable. It feels a reasonable price point at a nice casual restaurant. An $80 steak or a $60 steak probably, well, it does. It feels expensive to me. I don't know if I want to spend that much money. Now, for me, right, $30 totally feels affordable, doesn't even make me flinch. But if I go to that restaurant with my boyfriend, Alec, and he sees that the entrees are $30, he's going to think, oh my gosh, that's outrageous, right? Like, that is so expensive. Now, what I want you to think about here, does that mean that dinner is expensive, or does that mean it's affordable and reasonable, right? We both have had two totally different experiences at the same restaurant. So is it expensive or inexpensive? And here is where this is important. This is so important in your business too. It's neither. Right? So pricing is all about perception. How your clients perceive your pricing is about their perception, and it's about their experiences and the situation that they're in financially that will determine that. You could say the same price to 15 people and get 15 different reactions. So if you are going into a pricing conversation and you're trying to guess what your client thinks and you're making assumptions about that, you are not setting yourself up for success in that process. So you have got to, as much as possible, once you've got the pricing that makes sense for your business, you have to own it, right? Don't be scared to own it, right? So this is the biggest thing that I want you to realize. It doesn't mean that we can't have negotiations or conversations down the road, but we tend to, when we get nervous about pricing, we tend to say our pricing, and before the client has said anything, or the prospect, backtrack. Oh, well, but that's negotiable, that's starting, we can make something work for you. And we don't even know what their initial reaction was. So this is the thing I really want you to work on in your pricing conversations, is when you say the price, say it and shut up, right? That wasn't the nicest way to say that, but just say it, own it, and let it be, right? And just give the client time to form their own perceptions of what that pricing is. They might be thinking, wow, that's way less than I thought. Or they might be thinking, oh my gosh, I could never afford that. It's okay, but let them make that decision before you say anything else. And I'm going to give you some tools to get more comfortable around doing that here in a minute. So really, the first thing I need you to do is just be honest with yourself. When you think about your pricing, do you know that you have the right price for what you're charging in your business? And I want you to spend some time. Why or why not, right? Because you got to get clear on that first. If you don't have clarity, your clients and your prospects aren't going to have clarity either. And then once you are solid in that pricing, I want you to write a script about how you're going to answer pricing questions, how you're going to talk about money, and I want you to say it out loud at least 3 times in the mirror, and I want you to do this every day for a week until you own it, right? How much do you charge? My typical commission rate is 3%, right? If you're in real estate and that's the standard commission in your area, just say it, and then shut up. And then, right, another example. This is one that I use because this is very true in my business. Each project is customized to the individual client, but my standard engagement retainer starts at $2,000. Depending on the scope of work, it might go up from there. Okay, right? Like, if you're an insurance broker, you know that maybe you don't always have the most competitive rates. I'm going to shop for rates for you, and then I'll let you know. What I can tell you about pricing is that I don't shop solely based on price. And oftentimes I might not come in with the lowest possible quote, because I have found that making sure there's certain minimum policy coverages in place really make the best long-term financial sense for my customers, right? Have something that you can own and you can say whenever that question of pricing comes up. A lot of times people want to sell on value first before they address pricing. I totally understand the rationale there with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But once the client asks you what the pricing is, If you don't answer them, that is all they're going to be thinking about the entire time. They're not going to hear what the value is anyways. They're going to be thinking, how much is this going to cost me? Is this going to be expensive? Can I afford this, right? They have their own stories around money, and they want to make sure if they're engaged in a conversation that it's something that's doable for them. There are going to be clients that cannot afford your product or that aren't going to value what you offer. You want to figure that out as early as possible. And this is why I always say, don't hide from your pricing. Own it. Get it on the table as quickly as possible, because it becomes part of your qualifying process, right? And the more comfortable you are with this, the easier you're going to be able to have pricing conversations with clients. And it's going to take practice. It's not going to feel comfortable at first. But the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. Which is why I say, write down the script and practice in front of the mirror, because if it's going to be awkward, it's way more fun to have it be awkward when it's just you and your mirror than it is when you're face to face with a client, right? I want to give you an example. This is no different than me going to Costco and them telling me by a sign that the bottle of H3 Merlot is $11.99. It's a fact. There's no drama there. Are there more expensive wines in Costco? Absolutely. Are there less expensive wines in Costco? Probably, right? But sometimes that wine will go on sale, right? But on that day, that is the price of the wine. If I want to buy that wine, that's how much it's going to cost. I don't have a story about that because I know that's just the price of it. And you have to start thinking about your pricing for your business the same way. Because as soon as you start to think of it as something that just is arbitrary and doesn't matter and is negotiable, then you start to get in your own way and you get in your own head about other people and their stories around money and if they're a good fit. And you spend a lot of time with these prospects not having a profitable business. Your business must be profitable or you cannot be in service. One way to make sure you have a profitable business is to determine an appropriate pricing structure and own it and stick to it. It's going to be hard. You are going to lose some business because of pricing, but that's okay, right? That is okay. There's also a phenomenon where if you're priced too low, that there are going to be clients who aren't going to buy because they're going to feel like it's not a good value, right? That, oh, something must be wrong with it because it's not expensive. So whether you're high or low, we can talk more about resonant pricing for your clients later, but you've got to own the price that you've determined is the appropriate price. You've got to be able to say what it is, to own it as a fact, and then let the client have their own experience, right? So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, is just to start thinking about talking about money like a fact and to erase any assumptions that you have about how the client might take this. I'm going to give you another example. I was in medical sales. I sold a product that cost $100,000 a year. Now, whatever you think about the healthcare industry, the reason for this is it was because it was for a rare disease. There weren't a lot of patients who had this disease. It was never going to be, have 1 million people on it. There weren't that many people who had the disease. And so in order to justify the cost of the R&D, the cost of manufacturing, the process of shipping, right? There was a business reason the medication was this price. And all the time, I would have customers that would say, how much does it cost? And I would just say, a lot. It costs a lot. And here's why, right? And I would explain, it's a rare disease and there's only this number of patients and there's costs that go along making sure it's, affordable for patients. But I want you to think about if your patient doesn't get treated and they have a hospital visit, that is also very expensive, not even accounting for the quality of life of that patient, right? It is what it is, and don't be afraid of it. And that is the biggest mistake that people make when they talk about money and their business, is they get scared. They think that the pricing isn't a fact, and they hide from it and they feel ashamed about it. And when you do that, you lose the power to serve your customers. And there's a lot of things here, right? If I'm charging $10,000 and I don't feel good about it, I've got to reevaluate my pricing. But once I have committed to my pricing, own it. There is a time for negotiation down the road, but that happens down the road. You have first got to say it as a fact. You've got to own it. And then you've got to give the prospect the opportunity to make up their own mind before you jump in with assumptions about what you think they believe about your pricing. So I want to hear from you. What are the questions that come up for you around talking about pricing? Is this something that's comfortable for you? Is it something that makes your heart beat really high? Is it something that you just avoid? A lot of times I have clients when it comes to the sales process that want to not share their pricing on their website or really not go into that early on. I always say pricing is part of qualification. Of course, you don't want to say to somebody that you just met on the street, "Hi, I'm Christy. I do sales consulting for small businesses who need to revamp their sales process. My minimum engagement fee is $2,000 a month. Nice to meet you," right? Like, no, that's not the appropriate time. But ultimately, once you've had a conversation and people ask, when they're asking what the pricing is, that's always the appropriate time. It's okay for you to kind of go in and give them some reasons why. And here's why: because I spend X number of time and my clients typically get these results, and typically it pays for itself within the first, 3 months of us working together. I'm just giving you an example. But let them form their opinion. Let them take your own fears around that out of the equation. And here's why: because if you're only competing on price, you are commoditizing your business. You're commoditizing what you do, and you've missed the opportunity earlier on to really share the value and to continue to go back and revamp that value. So I want to hear from you. I want you guys to write your scripts. If you're stuck on that, share that in the comments below. I am here to support you around this. I think the more confident that you get talking about money and pricing, the more success you'll have in conversions. Your clients and your prospects feel your energy. Energy is contagious. And that is one of the things in sales that's really tricky, is it's not just what we say, it's how we say it. And that's why I always say in sales, there's attitude and aptitude, right? The aptitude is the skill. It's about how do we transition into pricing? How do we share value while we're also giving them the information? What is the words of those scripts? But the attitude is the part where it's owning it, where it's not making the assumptions about what the client might think about that pricing, where it's having the confidence and the belief in your own product and your own service, knowing that your pricing is a good value for what the services that you're getting. When you own that, that's the confidence that the client feels. And that is more important than the aptitude. You can have the best script in the world about how to talk about pricing and how to talk about money. But if you don't believe it and it's not true for you, your customers are going to feel that, and they are going to really have a sense of that, oh, she's not confident, so why would I be confident? So you've got to find a way to be able to deliver your pricing information with confidence, and then sit still in silence and hear. And if you're really right, you're sitting there and like a minute's gone by and the prospect isn't saying anything, you can certainly say something along the lines of, what are your thoughts on that? How does that work with your budget, right? There are questions that you can ask early on before they even ask about pricing, when they're just like, can you put together a proposal for us? What's your budget? And we'll talk more about that. But when you come back with that number, you've got to own it. Let them make up their own mind before you start to backtrack or start to get worried. So that's your homework today. You're going to create your script around your own pricing conversations. You're going to practice it in the mirror. And then I want to hear how that went for you. If you want more resources to increase your attitude and your aptitude around sales, if you're tired of feeling stressed around sales or feeling like sales conversations are a struggle, go to mytimetoprofit.com. Again, that's mytimetoprofit.com. There are tons of resources there for you. And if you have other questions in areas that you need support, post in the Facebook page or group, and I am here to support you. Have a great rest of the week. Can't wait to hear how this goes.